like to make a motion for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Because we have a presentation from a consultant, we'll go a bit out of order, and we'll first have a presentation on the proposal for dormitories at Queens College.
Can I go first? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're delighted today to bring to this committee the proposal for the new dorm at Queens College. We're delighted to have with us, of course, President Meiskens, who's going to say a few words. And we have individuals from the company that will be doing the development and the construction of the new dorm. We have Bruce McKee, Executive Vice President of Campus Development, Capstone Development Corporation, and Luis Bernardo, Principal Design Collective. And we have some other folks here from both RBC Capital as well as Capstone, but they will just be here to answer questions if the committee has any questions. Let me just say from the very beginning that this will be the second dorm that will be constructed for CUNY. And this is a little bit different than the City College dorm in that this dorm is located, I would say, right in the heart and center of the campus. And there have been some questions and issues that did not come up when we were doing the City College dormitory. One has to do with parking. I think, as everybody knows, students tend to drive to the Queens College campus, and there's always an issue about parking spaces and dealing with our neighbors and the community surrounding us. And so unlike the City College dormitory, this dorm will have parking spots associated with the dormitory. But let me say that I want to applaud President Meiskens and his staff because we are trying to come up with alternatives for people to be driving both to this campus, and hopefully students who live in this campus will have other transportation alternatives available to them. One is that I know the President's staff is looking at creating a jitney bus that could take the students both to the campus and around the campus, and could help those students who are living at the campus be able to do their shopping and just get around the neighborhood. The second thing is that I think, as this committee has seen around the city, there's a new phenomena. It's called the zip car, and you register online, and there are cars available, and to this day I still can't figure it out, but you show up at the spot and the car is there and you get this code and you get in and you drive away. They credit your credit card. So one of the things that we're looking at on this campus is that there be a zip car facility right adjacent to this dormitory. So students would be encouraged to use the zip car as an alternative to having their own car on campus. The other thing is that because this is in the center of the campus and the center of campus life, we're pretty confident that we will not have an issue in terms of noise and partying. We feel that we're a sufficient distance away from where any of the residents live adjacent to this campus to have this be an issue. And so overall, I would say that we are very excited about this project. We are very excited about our partnership with Capstone. And with that note, I will turn it over to President Meiskens.
Well, thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Weinschall. I am, of course, very excited to be here. I think this could be truly a red-letter day for Queens College. I think having this residence hall can move us to another level. There's been very few things that are so exciting to our students, to our faculty, to our staff, to our alumni, and to our donors. When I talk with potential donors, we talk about things happening on campus. We talk about general education, and they think that's kind of nice. I talk about the residence hall, and they get really excited. So this is great. And Chancellor Goldston, we thank you very much for your support and leadership. We're not the first. I told Greg Williams this morning we are often greatly in debt to City College for being the pioneer in the residence hall. I just wanted to add a couple of comments to what Vice Chancellor Weinschel said about some of the issues around this, in particular traffic and parking. I think truly an unintended consequence and a very exciting thing for us is, as we thought of building this residence hall where the emphasis was to make sure we have more opportunities for our students to really get a good, solid education, we also saw that through this effort we can truly become a green campus. As you'll hear from our presentation, we're very eager to be LEED certified, of course, but in addition, we want to be one of the leaders in how we move people around, how we engage in the transportation system. As you know, we don't have a subway at our doorstep, which is an unfortunate thing for us, but we want to move very actively into the 21st century. As you heard, we're talking about the zip cars, we're talking about other ways. We do not want our students who come to this residence hall to come with a car. And with the zip cars, that isn't necessary. And we'll show them, I think, very vividly how they're far better off financially if they don't have a car, and they can still get wherever they want to go. There's an express bus just a block or two away, takes them right into Manhattan. So this is something that we've worked very closely with the community with, and I want to thank Vice President Henderson for the many, many meetings with Community Board 8, and the last meeting in particular, there was really a lot of enthusiasm there from members of the community for what we're trying to do on the green side. Let me just introduce our Capstone Partners and say, as was just said, we are very excited about this partnership. Capstone was founded in 1990 as a developer that was working especially with colleges and universities on housing. They've developed nearly 50,000 beds for more than 50 colleges. They did CCNY, as you know. They're at Johns Hopkins, at Arizona State University, University of Maryland, College Park. So we are the beneficiaries of a lot of tremendous expertise. They've also managed approximately 15,000 student beds on various campuses. So they're a great partner. And I've really felt that when we've gone to meetings, and I found that the charge that I gave when this business began is one they've really tried to adhere to. And the first slide will show some of the things that I said back at a bidders conference some years ago, that let's make sure that we, with this facility, have a very, very exciting community of students on campus, a very safe residential facility. I wanted to make sure we have flexibility in this new space. Also, it's important to me that we have in this residence hall the wow factor, that when parents come with prospective students, they'd say, yes, this is the place we'd like to live, and I think you'll see that my colleague here, Louis, has achieved that. We also wanted to have space for new faculty, and we want to have space not only for freshmen, but for graduate students, in particular our students in the sciences who have been clamoring for this kind of space. So with that, that's enough of introduction. I'll turn it over to Bruce McKee, who will take us through what we have planned. Thanks.
Thank you, President Meiskens. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to come and present this. It's delightful to work with the folks at Queens College. I'm going to make this presentation relatively brief. The PowerPoint presentation and the slides that you'll see are really focused on the facility, how it integrates into the campus, how we responded to some of the points that President Meiskens brought up. And as was mentioned earlier, after the presentation, we have Tom Cullinan with RBC Capital Markets who can answer any questions relative to the finance. And we also have Patrick Savalskis with Capstone Management if there are any questions about how the management of the facility may run. So the presentation is very much focused on the design of the building, how it integrates into the campus, how it responds to the needs of Queens College and the needs of the particular students. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to speak up. This is your presentation. Big picture response. Obviously, the flexibility in attracting a wide variety of students was key. The demand study was done by Brailsford and Dunleavy and showed a demand of roughly 1,000 beds in various configurations across all classes of the institution. We wanted to make sure that the facility that we designed didn't exclude or specifically cater to one individual class at the expense of somebody else. And And I think we found a very happy medium there. We've been working with Brailsford and Dunleavy as well as Queens College in refining the program as we go through, and we'll get to a little bit more of that later. We've got a combination of shared bedrooms and single bedrooms. As per the market study, all of the units in this particular facility are apartment-style units. They all have full kitchens, dining room, or dining spaces, living rooms. No unit has less than 1 bath per 2 students. We have a high dispersion of common areas in this particular facility, much more so than you would have seen at CCNY or many of the other facilities. We have this 3-element architectural scenario that essentially breaks the big mass of the facility down so that you can have some autonomy within various components of the building. And again, when Louis explains the architecture, that will become apparent in some of the visuals. We have a very large central common space, which again we'll get to, with a pretty high level of amenity and hopefully the wow factor that President Meiskens is referring to. In addition to that, we have brought to this particular program something that's a bit unique in what we're calling the flex space. And this is a component of the architecture that you'll see that actually reaches out to the greater campus community, isn't for the exclusive use of the students that live here, but can be utilized by the campus at large as well as potentially the community. And it's essentially a small conference space, for lack of a better term, with a cafe area outside. Also, we looked hard at what the existing conditions of the campus are. It's a fabulous site, sandwiched between the gym and the library and smack in the middle of the academic facilities. And there is some delineation of a thought of what may happen down the road. We wanted to be sensitive to that without relying upon it. So the plan that has been generated should work for both what exists currently, as well as if the master plan as delineated gets implemented, it'll be a fine addition to that as well. Some of the salient facts of the projects: it's a 500-bed facility, 501 revenue, or 490 revenue-generating beds, 11 RA beds. Those are all student beds. We have 5 staff and faculty apartments. So two of the apartments are specifically for staff that work within the facility, and then 3 are intended for junior faculty. As was alluded to, there are 200 parking spaces that are associated with this particular project. It's about 157,000 square feet of enclosed space for those 500 beds. And right now we're looking at a construction cost of about $46 million. The rental rates are consistent with the market study. We kept the cap. We took the market study as it was delineated and made that our absolute maximum rather than the general rule. And extrapolating the rates within the market study out to 2009 rates, that's where we set our rate, and we've balanced everything off of that. We have a 16-month construction schedule anticipated, and we should begin construction in April of this year, very beginning of April of this year. One thing that is not on here that was alluded to is that LEED has been part of the process ever since day one, and we're currently contemplating a silver certification for this building. The points are in place, assuming that the design progresses, but we anticipate that this will be a LEED silver certified building. Louis, can you point to the site with the pointer? For those of you that aren't intimately familiar with where the facility is going to be located within the Queens College campus, there are existing tennis courts sandwiched between the gymnasium and the library, and that whole square is what we will be taking up with this facility. We're also adjacent to the primary parking garage, which is on campus, and currently what is the utility plant, or the boiler plant for the campus, which is envisioned potentially down the road to be sort of a mirrored quad of the one that you have to the south. Specifically, I'm going to let Louis talk about the design response from Design Collective and how this particular facility fits into that and responds to some of the forces that we have acting on it from each side.
Great. Well, as Bruce mentioned, there are several factors that affected this design. The potential for a master plan implementation that would call for that north quad could not be avoided, and the RFP said we had to address that, and of course we did. But also, one had to take into consideration, where are people coming from day one? There's a lot of traffic coming from the south quad, from the library, and from the arena. So we took that as an opportunity to say, well, let's have the best of both worlds. Let's have this work from day one and have it work in the future. And you can see these sort of delineated axial lines. There's a main axis coming from the arena, so we have an opening in the building you can literally walk through outside. We have an access coming so that if the quad is built, you could come from that sidewalk directly into the project there as well. But the main entrance, which is the dotted red arrow line that you see, that's where most of the traffic comes from now, and I would imagine in the future quite a bit as well, will take you underneath another archway past this flex space that Bruce mentioned that was open to the whole university and directly into the center or heart of the building. And Bruce, if you go to the next slide, from there, these are a series of diagrams that we used working with the university to talk about breaking the community into not one 500-bed facility, but 3 communities. And so if you look at the diagram at the left, we really broke the building into 3 buildings, if you will. We got to turn off the sound. Okay. 3 buildings arranged around 3 courtyards. And each one of those courtyards had a series of events. And if you look at the middle slide, the sort of blue cubes that you see, we took all the parts of the program where the community comes together, whether it's recreational space or lounge space or laundry, you name it, something wherever the students come together, we put those in strategic places, not only from within the building, but also they were terminating axes within the campus and creating an opportunity for a very exciting architecture. The last slide to the right talks about flexibility, which is something the president mentioned. The building can work as either 3 independent buildings, or there's one core that allows it to work horizontally on every floor. So you could either decide to do a community on every floor at, say, 150, about 80 beds per community, or you could decide to have every building have its community that way. And the reason communities are important is because it makes people feel like they're part of a community. They know the people within their floor. Sometimes they can group, say, a certain master's programs or athletics, music programs. A lot of flexibility, and that's what that diagram shows on the right-hand side. So finally, here is the actual plan itself, and you can see that it really is creating 3 courtyards. Some of them are more public. The ones to the right-hand side is where everyone sort of passes through the project. It's very public. The one to the upper left-hand side is very private. It's primarily a lawn. And then the lower portion has one that mirrors the courtyard behind the library. That's actually going to get some bike storage in addition to being an open space. And it's also going to have an entrance off the backside so that you can literally enter this building from many points. We didn't want to create a wall to the university. We wanted this thing to feel very porous. However, there is one main secured point, and that's as soon as you come through the main archway, you sort of see the curved path. That takes you to one controlled secured point, and that person can see the elevators, and nobody can get any further than that. What you see on the flex space, you see the one sort of square space with the round space within it? It's a conference room floating within a glass box, so that essentially... What? Oh, I'm sorry. That's right, the pointer. I know the project a little too well.
I have to tell you, I especially bought that pointer at lunch today because he was concerned about not having a laser.
I'm sorry, my apologies. The pass-through here to the main entrance, which is right there, there's the security desk, there's the elevators, centrally located for the facility. This is the flex space. So in the future, this facade here actually could possibly front this quad. And in the event that it doesn't, it's still the front facade, if you will. That's envisioned as a 2-story glass wall that could be very flexible, so that you could have a performance space, you could have a cafe, but if you wanted to, you could turn it into a black box and have a conference there, and literally the doors close within that inner volume.
This slide is somewhat hard to read, and just so everybody knows, I do have printed copies of this, so if you would like handouts, it's a little bit simpler on those.
And so these are 3 vignettes that we did of the project, and so you can see the pass-through here from the main circulation from the library. It's a 2-story opening that takes you to this axis here, and that's where you enter the building. This is the flex space, and you can see there's ample room for outdoor cafe. And even if the cafe doesn't work there, just for students to have their lunch. It's a very public, it's envisioned as a very public realm. And then as you move further into the project, it does become a little bit more private. And that was the intent, that it was a series of spaces. It wasn't just one big building. So facing east, or the main quad potentially in the future, it has a bit of a civic or institutional feel, but then as you move through the project, it becomes more residential in nature. And you'll see in some of the elevations coming up next, Bruce, to the point where we're even scaling it down so it has the rhythm and scale of almost a townhouse project. The arena, or the gym across the street, is actually not that tall of a structure. And you could easily overwhelm it with 500 beds. You could overwhelm the library or the arena. So that's one of the reasons we really did break this into several buildings. In fact, there's a 5-story building where we made the building the tallest is where it looks back to the city skyline. And that's 5 stories is the tallest portion of the building. And then here, it's 3 stories. There's the archway that's on access with the campus, and that little bridge that you see there is actually the community study space for all the people that live on that floor. We mixed a couple different types of masonry, once again, to give identity to the different buildings. You see a reddish brick here, a more light-colored brick. Introduced bay windows to give, again, a residential feel. And then wherever something important happened on the facade, whether it's the flex space or the entrance or the lounge spaces, we increased the amount of glazing there for obvious reasons. You can only spend so much money on the glazing on these projects. We're doing it for maximum impact. The units themselves are fairly straightforward. 85% of the units are either a 2-bedroom shared type project, unit, each with its own living room and kitchen. As Bruce mentioned, no more than 2 people share a bath. And then in the 4-bedroom scenario, everybody has their own bedroom, again, common room and kitchen. This is a rendering of the main space here. One of the interesting developments of this project, many of the slides that I showed you were part of our original conception working with the university. As the project developed, we decided it would actually be better to take as many of the common elements as we could and group them together on the first and second level at the entrance so that there could be a real synergy and energy between the uses. And so as you walk in, there's a student lounge, there is a recreational space, a small kitchen for a warming kitchen, there are music rooms, the mail room, the administration offices, and then upstairs there's a fitness center, and then there's a laundry room, and there's a series of seating areas on a balcony on the second level, and generous 2-story glazing off to the courtyard. So really it's a dynamic. This is where we were trying to get at the, quote, wow factor, this and the flex space that you see, but using materials that are good for the environment, that will give us the green points and the lead points that we need. As Bruce mentioned, we are striving to get the silver certification here. So I think that brings this portion of the presentation to a conclusion if there's no questions.
It does. And again, if anybody has any questions relative to the architecture, the design, the finance, or the management, everybody is here able to answer those questions. And if you forget their name,
Nicely done.
I would like to say that I spoke to Queens College and they highly support the plan. With our planners to continue.
Have you picked out your apartment yet?
I'm looking forward to where we're going to have ours.
Mr. President, just a minor question. I'm just curious, what is, because I actually never asked about City College in this regard, can students pay to have meals on campus, or is this refrigerators provided, you go shopping, and it's like living independently?
You can live independently, but of course we have food service within just a short walking distance, and one can have a food plan there. But we're anticipating most of these students will want to use their kitchenettes.
Mr. Chairman, when I was at City College, Fresh Direct now delivers up to City College, and I've noticed a number of Fresh Direct boxes. Yes, so I think the students aren't going hungry at these dorms.
I was just wondering if you were instituting a meal plan.
No.
There is existing dining services on the campus. However, they're not necessarily set up for a residential style campus, which is why all the apartments were designed with kitchens, because the dining facilities at the school aren't necessarily equipped for 24-hour residential life.
I have a question. In designing the units, do you design units that are specifically designated for students with physical disabilities, or are all the units designed to be used by students?
All of the units are adaptable, and we have, right now, I believe it's between 2, the minimum, and 5% that are accessible. And we have units of each type that are fully accessible units. So they have special provisions within them, but they're designed as part of the greater context, yes. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
How's it going to be handicap accessible?
Well, there are 2 elevators. One elevator goes all the way to the garage, so if there's a handicapped student that parks, they can get into the elevator in the garage. And all of the access ways are designed so that they're really
Rampways?
accessible. Yeah, and actually, right now, the first floor is at grade with the corner where Louis pointed out the sort of the sweeping main entrance to the facility. That is essentially on grade. There's very little slope to that primary access into the main entry, less than 3%.
And how energy friendly is it going to be? Environmentally friendly is it going to be towards the environment?
We're doing an energy analysis right now with our lead consultant, and we had done a previous energy analysis with our mechanical engineer to make sure that we didn't do anything that would jeopardize our LEED certification or silver LEED certification. Other than that, I can't give you any specifics yet because it's ongoing.
It's a green building.
But it is a green building.
Okay, I didn't hear that already.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a green building.
This is really good news for the university because this kind of facility is something that we've really needed for a long time. Quite a few of our students have home situations that don't really allow them to study in the way they would be able to if they had a better situation, and dormitories are really an ideal setup for that because students can assist each other much more effectively than students who are separated by space, even with the internet. So I'd like to congratulate you on this and congratulate you on developing this. This is a wonderful thing for the university, and I hope there are more of these. I've got a couple practical questions. Dormitories are very intense in terms of the wear and tear. I imagine that you have paid attention to that, but you haven't really addressed that verbally. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
I'd be happy to, and actually, Patrick, if you want to chime in, feel free. To start, I will say that the finance model for this particular project, unlike many institutional projects because of the way it's being financed, contemplates reserves for replacements and maintenance funds far beyond what you might see otherwise. There are obviously significant wear items that you will find in a dormitory or a residence hall. Within the unit, the finishes are relatively standard. It is standard gypsum board, and within the hallways it's the same. Within the units, it's rather easy to control because Patrick and his crew do walkthroughs on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, if I'm misstating that. And when damage is noted or reported, it's immediately charged back to the student. And once the student understands that they're going to be paying for it that quick, it tends to put a bit of a damper on some of the damage that occurs within the unit. Outside the unit, where it's not nearly as trackable, is a little bit more difficult. The building is set up so that all of the common areas, including the corridors, the lobbies, the lounges, are cameraed. Not necessarily being cameraed from day one, but all of the points for coverage will be in place so that if there's a particular location within the building that's experiencing vandalism or some other situation that suggests cameraing is appropriate, we can plug a camera in there, monitor it, and that tends to drop the vandalism rate significantly as well. The carpet that we're looking at in this building is not only sustainable, it's carpet tile, it's easily replaceable. It's more of a commercial quality carpet than you would find in a lot of residential facilities. It wears very well. We do annual turns with paint, and I'll let Patrick talk about any other specific maintenance items that the management team.
At all the sites, we have a preventive maintenance schedule. We go through on a regular basis, depending on what the systems are. That will go in with the budget. And also, every year when we do the budget, we usually present a capital plan as the building ages and we see where the wear and tear is occurring. The camera system we just talked about, though, is in regards to common areas, very effective. We've done that at some of our other properties in Maryland, and it's without common area vandalism and such because walkthroughs and things like that with the RA staff, and so we run the residential. Help to keep it all in check, but your question is on point. There is a lot of wear and tear that happens in a residence hall. Basically, what you do is try to prevent as much and then possible when it occurs. But the PM, as the building ages, is something that will get developed as we see where the problems occur. Because we don't know yet, but we've done that at several sites. We have a 10-year capital plan we usually put forward. We estimate where we're going to do mattresses. Budget accounts for a reserve account, and one property I have is now in its 7th year, and we're building more. It's at Towson University in Maryland. It is something you have to stay on top of, but that's part of what our responsibility is.
This is separate from the campus's own other maintenance efforts?
Yes.
That's correct.
Totally separate item.
Absolutely.
I've got another question, that is, you mentioned that there would be facilities for graduate students. Will these be in a separate part? Will the graduate students be housed together? Of course, that's not part of the building design. It's a question of the building use, so it may more press President Meisman.
I'll address it initially. We spent a lot of time evaluating whether or not we should put a specifically designed graduate student unit in this facility in some location. And when you do that, if you're going to make it successful on a leasing basis, you do want to give them some separation. What we did instead was we placed a number of units that are currently configured as two-bedroom shared units together in a component of the floor plan that is There's your pointer.
Pointer?
No, that's not the pointer. Sorry, that's a trick. We had originally looked at making this sort of a graduate hub, if you will, where we would put specifically dedicated graduate style units. Graduate students tend to be the most price sensitive and they want the most space and most privacy, which unfortunately makes the pro forma more difficult. Rather than locking ourselves into that model, what we did is we reevaluated the two-bedroom shared that we had and determined that if and when the project is running as it's anticipated to run, if there was a demand for graduate students, those units could be converted to one-bedroom or two-bedroom single units that would be appropriate to graduate units, and they would be relatively isolated in their own section. And you could do that on a floor-by-floor basis, so you're not necessarily taking up that entire wing, but you're still giving them some autonomy and some separation and having a unit that would be appropriate to them.
Thank you.
Wanted to ask about security. I know you said there's a guard at the front. Is there a guard in each building? And like, how do the students have access? Do they have to show ID, or can just other people come in?
What we've got, and Louis talked about the idea of having this building accessible from many locations, which is true to the site, but not true to the interior. The interior is highly controlled. This building is a little bit different than what we would typically do, this being our primary entry point, obviously from the campus here and from the garage or from the other parking structure back through this way. Both of these points of entry go by the security desk. The other point of entry into the building is over here on the first floor, because to come in here and walk all the way around would be an inconvenience that students probably wouldn't put up with for too long. The access to the building is through a proximity card, so you have to have a proximity card and you swipe it. These doors over here have cameras, intercom, and are viewable by the security desk, which is right here. So nobody can theoretically get into the building without being seen. They swipe their card, it alerts the security guard, the camera turns on, he can look and see who it is. So you have some security over tailgating. It's not foolproof, but you have a reasonable degree of security over tailgating, and anybody that comes through here has to go by the security guard, has to swipe their card. And then there's, on this particular facility, we have what we call a two-swipe process to get to the residential facility through the main entry point. Anybody that comes in here has to swipe their card to get into the building, then also has to swipe a card at a door here to get to the elevator or to go up the stairs. So if there's an event in the common space that doesn't have student occupants in it, those folks can be in there enjoying that space, but they can't necessarily get to the student rooms easily. Again, there's tailgating, which means a student that's allowed opens the door and somebody that's not allowed follows them in. You know, that's a diligence factor that Patrick has to train the student occupants on. But there is a pretty good sense of control here. The security desk has visual access to the elevators and to the stair entry door. The security guard is 24 hours. The units and the bedrooms are all on standard keys, so they're not part of the card access system. The cameras tie in. The interior cameras all tie into the security desk and report back to campus security. The exterior cameras report directly back to campus security, as do the cameras in the parking structure below.
First of all, I agree. This is wonderful. My students, John Jay students who are at the City College dorm, really love it. And as a graduate of Queens, as so many of us here are, I wish this had existed when I went. Remember? I lived in a furnished room in a rooming house near campus, so I could have a place to live while going. So this is really wonderful. But when you said that there was a survey done of interest and 1,000 students indicated interest, was that with the knowledge that the monthly rent would be about $1,400 for the larger unit?
The Brailsford Dunleavy market study, the demand analysis was actually based on a unit type associated with the cost.
And the price.
So,
it's driven by price.
and actually the highest end unit, which the market study suggested more demand than we're providing for.
Yes.
The highest cost unit in our facility is less than, I think it's 5%, whereas they were showing a demand for slightly more than that, 10 or 15%. The meat of our facility is the sort of low to mid cost product. They suggested an initial phase of, I think it was roughly 80%, 2-bedroom shared and 4 bedrooms, and we bumped that up to 85%, eliminating some of the higher cost units. They also had a demand for a number of suites, but that was determined to be inappropriate because of the lack of dining services that the campus currently has.
Just one question, Vice Chancellor. Just as the City College dorms are open to other college students, such as John Jay, if there is not indeed the demand for all the units,
Yes. The answer is
LaGuardia or
the
law school.
integrated university.
Yeah, I know. I know the answer. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So we do?
Yes.
Yeah. So shall we take a vote on this?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll go back to item number 1, and Vice Chancellor, please continue.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is a resolution accepting the design of restoration at the Borough of Manhattan Community College at its main campus, 199 Chambers Street. And this is a facade project. I think, as we all know, there's local law 11 in the city of New York. We see all the sidewalk bridges up, and we are also subject to local law 11. And so we need to do extensive repairs to the exterior of the building. You want me to go through all of them, and then we'll take one? Okay, great. The next item, Mr. Chairman, is regarding York College, and this is for a new crosswalk which will connect the new 159th Street pedestrian mall to 160th Street, running between the recently completed York Child and Family Center and the classroom building. The new crosswalk will facilitate the flow of college-bound pedestrians from the subway and bus depot that stops at Jamaica Center to the main campus buildings. And along this crosswalk, it will have a small plaza against the classroom building, decorative lighting and landscaping, and our new campus standard fencing. The last two items, Mr. Chairman, are leasing items. They may look familiar to this committee because they were brought in June. We, in both instances, both of these leases, both for LaGuardia Community College and Medgar Evers, we've worked with both landlords, and more space has become available in both buildings. There's a tremendous need on the college's parts to have more space, and so we would like to, in the case of Medgar Evers, we will now be going from 6,000 square feet to 9,000 square feet. And for LaGuardia Community College, we're increasing the space from 3,500 to 6,000 square feet.
Okay, are there any questions on any of these additional issues? Motion to approve all 4 in aggregate? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, there being no other business, adjourned. Yeah.
The Board Committee on Fiscal Affairs. Please, just one announcement. The Board Committee on Fiscal Affairs will convene in this room at 5 p.m. and the Board Committee on Academic Affairs, CAPRA, will convene in the Trustee Lounge at 5 p.m.